If you want to become exceptional, you have to be willing to be alone. But there's also this really interesting contradiction in what we want as human beings, and that's connection. We want to belong. We want community. We want to feel accepted and understood. But at the same time, when you have big dreams, when you want to build an extraordinary life, it is a requirement that you stand out and that you are unique. You need your own perspective, your own path, because you can't completely conform to a group while trying to become someone who stands out from it. At some point, becoming exceptional requires you to be willing to stand alone. Hi muses, welcome back to the channel where women who want everything learn to have their cake and eat it too. I'm your host Nadeen, and I am all about rebuilding the village for women so we can have these open conversations. Thank you so much for being here. Please subscribe if you're new so you never miss any of our chats. I think sometimes when people hear the word solitude, they think of being alone and feeling lonely. But learning how to spend time with yourself is one of the most important skills you can develop if you want to make anything out of your life, but especially if your goal is to build something of your own. Because solitude isn't being antisocial or deciding that you don't need anyone. It's just that you need to learn how to stand on your own 2 feet first. There are certain parts of life that are for you to figure out, not for a whole committee of people to comment on. There are decisions only you can make, and there are desires only you can fully understand. And there are ideas that need time to fully develop before you share them with the world and invite in other people's opinions. And most importantly, there's a version of you that only you can meet when everyone else's voice gets quiet enough. So, as always, we don't gatekeep, so let's step into it. We live in a world where you can completely avoid being alone with your own thoughts, and we have immediate access to everyone else's opinions. The second you get bored, you open TikTok or Instagram. When you're in the car, you put on a podcast. When you're on your hot girl walk, it's an audiobook. You have a question about your life, you text your group chat. You're thinking about breaking up, moving, changing careers, starting a business, whatever it is, before you've even finished forming your own opinions, you're asking everyone else what they think. I love talking to my friends and getting advice from them, and obviously I consume and create content, but do you leave time for yourself? When do you make time to hear your own inner thoughts? When do you actually sit there and think about what you want? Because if you constantly consume other people's thoughts, eventually it becomes very hard to distinguish between what you actually want and what other people tell you that you should want. Things you've just been overexposed to. I literally see this happen in real time with social media. Like one moment I see those 2-toe hoof shoes trending and I'm like, what in the world are these girls wearing? And then I keep seeing them in real life, and literally just last night I caught myself thinking about whether or not I should get a pair for myself, and I was like, wait, absolutely not. What is happening? That is the power of influence. Now, think about what happens when you're constantly being influenced on things that actually affect the direction of your life. What success looks like, what kind of career you should have, what kind of business you should build, what kind of relationship you should want, how much money is enough, what's embarrassing, what's impressive, what's worth pursuing. You can spend so much time taking in everyone else's ideas, but never give yourself enough space to develop your own. And I think that gets kind of complicated when you're trying to build something or reach a long-term goal. Because if you're trying to create something exceptional and build this amazing life, at some point you have to stop consuming and start thinking. We see this all the time with entrepreneurship and content creation. You want to start a business, so you watch 100 videos about how to start a business. You want to become a creator, so you study all of your favorite creators. You want to start a podcast, so you start looking at all the successful podcasts and figuring out what they're doing. And obviously, you should learn from people who are ahead of you. I'm not saying to not do research or don't study, but there comes a point where you can consume so much of what already exists that you start limiting your own imagination to what's already out there instead of creating something different. And now you're trying to stand out using the same blueprint everybody else is using. It's so weird because it creates this hive mind almost. Of course, there is some nuance to this because you don't always need to reinvent the wheel of what's working. But again, if you're trying to stand out, looking, behaving, showing up like everybody else isn't going to give you the result you want. Sometimes you need to remove the input. No asking your friend or your boyfriend, no social media, no podcast, no chat GPT, no looking at what everybody else in your industry is doing. And just think, what do I want? What do I want to build? What do I see that maybe other people don't see? What would I try if I wasn't worried about failing or looking stupid? Who do I want to be? And it's sometimes a little hard to answer these questions when you're not used to validating your own thoughts or opinions. I personally start looking for answers everywhere else. Like I'll ask my friends, I'll start scrolling these like tarot pick a card videos, like, okay, pile number 3, tell me what I'm supposed to do with my life. But really, what I'm looking for is someone or something outside of me to give me certainty. I want someone to say, yes, that is the right direction, go for it. But the problem is when you're building something that doesn't exist yet, sometimes nobody can give you that certainty. Sometimes you are going to be the only person who sees it. And I think that's where solitude and exceptionalism gets really interesting because we all say that we want to be different. We want to build a business nobody in our family has built. We want more money. We want to create something original. We want to do things differently. But we also want everybody around us to like us and to understand why we're doing it. And you might not get both. Because every community has a definition of normal. Your family has one, your friend group has one, your culture has one, your industry has one. There's an invisible boundary around what people within that community are supposed to do. And as long as you stay inside that boundary, you get the comfort of being agreed with. But the second you step outside of that boundary, people start having questions. Why would you leave that job? How could you quit something so stable? Why would you spend money on that? Why are you putting so much time into this thing that isn't even making you money? And my personal favorite, do you really think that's realistic? And that's when you find out how much you actually trust yourself or how much you are willing to take a risk on yourself. Because it's really easy to believe in your own vision when everyone else around you is saying, yes, girl, that is a great idea. But it's a completely different thing to believe in it when someone you respect looks at you and says, I don't know if that's gonna work. That's why sometimes you need to be careful about who you expose your idea to and when you share that idea. Sometimes you need to let something belong to you for a little while, build it on your own, make it your own, and just have enough time to think about it. Play with it, develop it, and understand why you believe in it before you invite 10 other people into the room. When an idea is new, your conviction around it is probably still new too, and one person's negative reaction can completely throw you off. This is also why I'm really hesitant when my friends share their business ideas with me too, because I never want to rain on their parade, and I know I'm also very risk averse. It's a limiting belief from my survival mode days that I'm actively pushing myself to work on, because I know that to do the things I want to do, I also need to have some crazy belief on things working out rather than not. Like, I truly do believe that if you think it will work out, it will. And if it doesn't, it's just because of execution. Everything actually is just execution. So when my friends share their ideas with me, I try really hard to understand their vision, be excited with them, and I state facts that I see without interjecting my feelings or opinions. I feel like a lot of times they come to me because I have more of a marketing brain, so I give them ideas on how I think things can best work out. But like, I know how it feels to share something and the person you're talking to is just like, oh, interesting. And now you're driving home like, oh my God, this is a terrible idea. I knew it. It's never going to work out. Cancel everything. This is what happens when you haven't developed enough conviction around your own ideas yet. And the only way I know how to build that conviction is to actually make decisions for yourself. Sometimes you'll make the wrong decision, and that's okay. Self-trust isn't just believing that you're always right. It's knowing that if you're wrong, you trust yourself enough to deal with whatever happens next. And I think that's why solitude connects you so deeply with your intuition, because you start learning more about yourself in the process too. You start recognizing when you genuinely want something, or when you're trying to convince yourself that you want it, or you start noticing when it's your fear overtaking your thoughts. You also learn your patterns because you're actually giving yourself enough quiet time to observe them. And that becomes so important the bigger your life grows, because there are going to be decisions where nobody can tell you what to do. There's no tutorial for your exact life. There's no person on TikTok who has your exact circumstances, your exact desires, your exact resources, your exact personality, and your exact vision. But because of that, that becomes your winning angle at whatever it is you do too. Eventually, you become the kind of person who has to decide for yourself. And if you're trying to do something genuinely different, you have to also develop a tolerance for being misunderstood. I think that's one of the least glamorous parts of having big dreams. Everybody wants to stand out after the thing works out. It's fun to be different when everybody is calling you cool or unique or innovative. It's fun to be unconventional and different when everybody is telling you how brave you were for taking the risk. But before people call you any of that, they might just think you're weird and low-key crazy. A lot of potentially great ideas die in that stage because the person creating them couldn't tolerate being misunderstood long enough to find out if they were right. That's the part where you have to be able to stand alone, to push through when literally no one else believes in you. And I don't mean that in this hyper independent, I don't need anybody way, because I actually think it's the opposite. I think we really do need community. I want women to have villages again. I want you to have incredible girlfriends. I want you to have mentors and collaborators and people who challenge you and people who know things that you don't know who can help you. But I think there's an order to it. You need enough time with yourself to know who you are before you become completely absorbed into a group. You need to know when you need to spend time on your own, because you need the space to grow your own ideas and to focus on yourself. Because if your need to be accepted is stronger than your sense of self, you're going to start shaping yourself around whatever gets you accepted. That's why solitude is important. Solitude gives you space to build yourself first. Figure out what you believe in. Figure out what you want. Figure out what you're building. Develop your own taste. Develop your standards. Develop enough self-trust that someone disagreeing with you doesn't immediately make you question yourself. And then go find your people. The right community doesn't require you to become less of an individual. It exposes you to the right people who have also developed and worked on themselves too. Now somebody has an idea you never considered. Someone challenges you and you think, wait, she's right. Someone has a skill you don't have. Someone sees a blind spot you don't see. Someone introduces you to a possibility you didn't even know existed. And now you're expanding each other instead of conforming to each other. So I don't think the answer is solitude or community. You need both if you want an enriched life. You need the ability to go into the room by yourself, think, create, decide, listen to your intuition, and figure out what you actually want. And then you need the ability to come back out of that room and let other intelligent people grow with you. So you need to know which moment you're in right now. Do you need input in this moment, or do you have all the information you need, but you're avoiding making the decision? Do you actually need advice, or are you looking for someone to give you permission? So if you're trying to build something right now, I would start practicing solitude in really small ways. You don't need a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat. You don't need to go hermit mode in some cabin in the woods. Just create parts of your life where nobody else gets immediate access to you. Go for a walk without listening to anything. Drive without putting on a podcast. Spend a weekend at home away from your phone and away from your friends. And when you have a big decision to make, Ask yourself what you think first. Journal about it, write it down, and then go get advice if you really have to. Because I'm not telling you to not listen to people, but make sure they are people you actually want to trade places with or have done the thing you want to do. Because sometimes you really could be wrong. Sometimes someone else sees something you don't, and you really do need help. But the goal is to know what your voice sounds like before you add everybody else's voice into the conversation. Before people understand the vision, you have to understand it first. Before anybody else recognizes what makes you different, you have to be willing to explore what makes you different without the certainty of knowing whether or not people are going to actually like it. And sometimes, before you find the people who are willing to stand beside you, you have to be willing to stand alone. That's all the cake I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching until the end. I appreciate it so much. And if you enjoyed our little chat today, please like, hype, and leave a comment to share your thoughts. And I'll see you in the next episode.